Thanks, Derek, for the introduction. Can you all hear me? Okay. So once again, my name is Robert Smith, and I am a National Account Executive with Cost Segregation Services. We are the largest independent provider of cost segregation studies in the country. Over the past 20 plus years, we have been chosen by clients just like yourselves over 45,000 times in all 50 states to help lower their taxes and increase their cash flows. Now, Derek has kindly asked me here to not only give you a greater understanding of how Cost Seg works, but present you with some specific examples right here in Tri-Cities and how the additional related programs of PAD and 179D can further enhance your benefits. At the end, we're going to have a Q&A, but I really would like to have it as interactive as possible. So if you come up with a question, do not hesitate to stop me, okay? Because if you've got the question, probably someone else in the room has the same one. Okay? Excuse me. So first, how many here are familiar with cost segregation? Good, I like that. How many have actually utilized a cost seg study? Good, okay. Well, for the others, and without spending an awful lot of time, and although cost seg also applies to types of residential property, we're just going to concentrate on commercial and give you a brief background. So, as owners of commercial property, the U.S. tax code allows you to depreciate your building to reflect the wear and tear, which lowers its intrinsic value. No one remembers how they came up with the number, but straight line depreciation allows you to fully depreciate your building over 37 years. So every component of your building, not including land, can only be depreciated 1/37th per year. Then in 1986, a lawsuit against the IRS showcased that the straight line method was unfair, as many components of your building just don't have those kind of lives. So from that lawsuit, a new depreciation method approved and even recommended by the IRS now was born. By means of analysis, the varied components of your building can be identified or segregated into their now varied and approved class lives of 5, 7, and 15, and then the remainder staying in the 37. More often than not, about 15 to 30% of a building's components can now be accelerated. Greater depreciation lowers your net income, which reduces taxes. This depreciation is highly effective and once again not only approved by, but recommended by the IRS since 1986. So not new, but very underutilized. Then in 2017, Congress passed the CARES Act. That stands for Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security. Don't know how they got that one, but and that created a new classification that would dramatically enhance the effectiveness of cost seg. That classification is known as bonus depreciation. So it allows the purchaser of a property placed into service, and remember that term, placed into service, between October 2017 and December 31st, 2022, to take 100% of all that identified accelerated 5, 7, and 15-year property and take it in 1 year. No returns have to be amended. So even doing a look-back study, it applies to the year it is filed, and it is needed, and if needed, give you an example, say for instance, a study produces $180,000 of net tax benefit to you, but based upon your tax structure, you only need about $80,000 to get down to zero. Well, it carries over. It carries over for as long until you use it all up. Okay, so one unfortunate fact, the CARES Act was written to be passed, to be phased out. So the bonus dropped to 80% in 2023, 60% in 2024, 40% in 25, and 20% in 26. But even without the bonus depreciation, cost seg is still highly beneficial. It's just over a longer period of time. But with bonus, obviously, the upfront benefit is much greater. A quick aside, last fall, bipartisan addendum to the Child Care Act extending the 100% bonus to 12/31 of 2025 was passed by the House. But because of politics, and I'm not going to go anywhere near there, did not make it through the Senate. We have been told and are hopeful that whoever wins the upcoming election, the bill has a good chance to resurface and be retroactive. Unknown yet. Okay, besides the direct monetary benefit, what other direct benefit does a cost seg provide? The moment you receive it, it becomes a living document. It provides to your CPA the depreciated value, all those identified components of your building. And so say 5 years down the road, all of a sudden you have a major repair. Your CPA only needs to review the listed value in the study. Your CPA then applies the depreciation accrued since then to determine if the building repair can be expensed or capitalized. Expensing is always better. Capitalizing can have recapture. Okay. So, you are a current or prospective building owner, or your clients are. You have questions on what completing a cost segregation study can do for you or them, and what it will cost. What is your return on your investment? We want to provide you with all that information. At no cost, CCSI will provide you with a preliminary benefit analysis on any given property. Although not as detailed as a full study, after having completed over 45,000 studies with many, many similar properties based upon the net value of the building, that's price minus land, we can provide you with a pretty accurate range of benefits. Once again, no cost. Okay, now Derek has provided me with 5 properties for which I have completed a preliminary analysis. 4 of them are open market transactions hoping to be sold, and 1 is actually a property for lease. I have based the analysis on the listings, assuming a sale and in-service date by the end of 2024. Obviously, that's going to show a 60% bonus. For the
what's in-service date?
12/2024. And then for the one of the properties, I actually did a 2024 and a 01/2025 number to give you an idea what happened to that bonus when it went from 24 to 25. And for the managed property, the numbers reflect the actual in-service date of 7/2023. So we're going to start with the first one, if I did get the button right. Okay, 9425 Sandifer Parkway. Oh, by the way, all these are up on Derek's wall except for one. Okay, now this is listed for $4.2 million. I actually just assumed an easier number of $4 million for a sales price, and then we subtracted out the land, and that ended up with a net building cost of $3,440,000. Now, this is just a preliminary analysis. We have not seen the property, we haven't gone through it, we haven't done our photo survey, but conservatively, we're going to estimate about 13% of that building is going to be eligible for acceleration. High end, about 21. So you're looking increased deduction, $295 to $478, and that reflects in taxes numbers, $109 to $176. This number right here, the 2029, you're still going to keep depreciating it over the next 5 years, and that's just going to show you the net number of that. So by the end of 2029, you're about here. Okay, first one. Derek.
What's that mean?
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you had been on a straight line depreciation, and I can actually pull that number up, and then went to accelerated, this is the increased depreciation on that building with the study. Minimum 295, high end 478. So you went from, no, I'm not going to do that. You'll be here all day. If you took 1/37th of the building, okay, and you're just off the top of my head, that's like about $90,000. You're going to be up between $295,000 and $478,000 with accelerated depreciation. This is your ROI. Your cost of doing that, probably $86.60 for the study. This is 5456 is actually, because you get to write that off, you get to write the study costs off. So the net cost to you is only about $5,400, and your tax savings is going to be up in here. So you've got a really high ROI.
And that tax savings is what goes against your income? Where's that?
Okay, and we're going to discuss the types of income, but yes, this lowers your income tax. Okay, let's try number 2. Okay, restaurant on Williams, $875,000. And this one, less land, we're looking at $560,000 of the net building value. Increased depreciation, 86 to 126. Tax savings, 32,000 to 47,000. Cost you 3,000. And I'm gonna hit something that's really gonna be important to you in just a few minutes called grouping, and remember that term, okay? So it's gonna range from between 23% to 34% in actual increased accelerated depreciation. Okay.
Well, that's okay. Just a heads up, just the thing is also on these ones, we pick some ones that represent different property types, different value marks. They will ladder up to a different idea of property in your head. That's kind of the point is it may not be office, but price points breaking down. And also, there are opportunities. This one actually did go under contract. This supposedly, a great deal. This all his restaurant, FF&E, everything included, kind of crazy, but that hopefully is going to be a public house in a month and a half now. That investor.
So it's under contract right now?
Under contract right now.
Cool, we need to talk.
So yeah, I haven't talked to that buyer, but just something to take advantage of. And also, it's got stuff in it. It's different. So what can you deduct of that property that's different than an office property? But just want to bring that up. All right.
So back to that restaurant for just a moment. If he gets it in service date is the really most important thing. It doesn't make any difference when you purchase it. It's when you put it in service. So give you an example of that. I bought a building. I spent $2 million for it, and I'm going to tear it apart. And I'm not going to lease it out until after the target date of 2025. In service is 2025. You didn't have it for rent. You were not operating the building until 2025. So it's your in-service date is the most important date at all. Yes?
Do you have to have a tenant actually?
No. Offered for sale.
Where is that line?
If it's offered for, in other words, you're prepared to put someone in there. I mean, obviously, if you're sitting and all you got is studs, you're not going to be able to put a client in before your target date. But if you're almost done and you've got it marketed for tenancy, yep, you're in service.
So if you're expecting it to be completed in 2025, but you're already kind of, you got slab, it's not complete, you're kind of you're pre-leasing, it's marketing, is 2024 the service?
Yeah, the IRS has little sniff tests, They want to say, okay, fine, was it available? In other words, okay, well, you can say, well, yeah, it was available. We hadn't finished it because we were in consultation for what the building was going to look like. Maybe they wanted an extra 500 square feet, and we're still doing that. Talk to me. Then we talk to my office and say, well, are we going to be able to hit the target date or not based upon each one of those little, maybe unique situations. So we can give you those answers based upon what those specifics are. Okay, number 3. Now this is an office condo, 1.125 million. This is going to get repetitive, but I want to get to the number 5 pretty quick first. Same kind of situation. We're looking at basically 14% all in accelerated there for 5-year and 20% there. You don't have an awful lot of 15 because it's condominiumized. In other words, you've got shared parking, different things like that. Okay, but still, you got a 14 to 20 ROI on a cost of, net cost of $3,800 for that kind of tax savings. And these are dedicated to the tax year you're filing. It's not time sensitive when you purchase the building, it's time sensitive when you file, okay? So if you bought the building in 2024, it's gonna go in your 2024 return, which is not due until most people's September or October if you're a corporate or individual. Everybody extends anymore. I don't know anybody that doesn't. In fact, I haven't talked to anybody that's filed an April 15th tax return in I don't know how long. Okay, let's see. I want to get, we're going to, now this is a big one. Okay, 6375. It's got a functioning store and a vacant one. A couple things can happen with this because you may be looking at a 2-part study. You may get the property sold at 6375. They do a study on it. We're going to get all the savings on it. Then they rent out the vacant spot. Okay? Depending on who is doing the improvements, if the tenant is doing the improvements, they can do an abbreviated study for qualified improvement property. They can accelerate the things they're putting in. If the seller's doing it, obviously. But even the tenant can do a study and get savings on what they're putting in. This particular property, 21%. Oh, we get a little bigger number now. Increased on the low end, 646, on the high end, 891, and this is for 2024. Yes, sir.
I do notice all these examples are using the top tax rate as an example.
Top tax? Yes, I'm using 37% for the owner.
And you know, in our CPA practice, there's not that many people who are at the top tax rate because you have to have a pretty high income as it flows through to you as an individual.
Agreed.
It has to be $500,000 or more
Yeah.
taxable before you hit that tax rate. Most people are going to be
24 to 32.
22, 24, 32.
Yeah. And when we do our analysis, we put it in with the recommended tax rate of the client.
Effective tax rate
Yes.
for that client.
Yes, always do that.
All right.
Okay? Thank you. That's in there somewhere. Okay. What I want to show here is the difference between 2024 and 2025. This is a 60% tax rate, or a 60% bonus rate. This one, 40% tax rate. So just jump back and forth between that. Let's just do the low end, 646, 445.
200K difference.
Yeah, just in that. Now, in truth, you're still going to get all of that depreciation. It's going to take place. It's just the bonus gives it such a huge impetus to get that in 1 year, and the money and how you can use that. All of a sudden, you've got that huge influx of cash. What are you going to do with it? When we do our studies, we actually put a time value of money into our analysis, just the preliminary analysis, showing you if you had $150,000 and you put it in at 7% or 8%, here's what you're going to have, even if you just put it in a drawer and didn't do anything with it. So having that, every economist in the world will tell you that, hey, money in hand is a heck of a lot more than money that's coming down the pike, because you can do something with it. And depending on what you do with it, if you've got a company that is buying inventory, and you're using that 100,000 or some number, and you've got a 50% profit on some of those items. So that's really a lot more than just 8%. Okay, now I'm going to give you a property that's for lease, currently for lease. This building was purchased in July of 2023 for $1.5 million. So we're going to get 80% bonus depreciation on this because it's back in 2023. And I want to come across pretty strongly with this. The study is done on the date of service. So if you have a building that you purchased, especially between October 7th of 2017 and December 31st of 2022, you get 100%, even if you're filing it on your 24 or 25 or 26 return. Okay? It's a look back. And all that, you never have to amend your return. It goes in the year that you are applying for it. Okay? So, smaller little ROI, we're a smaller property, 15 to 1, 24 to 1, but still, in all these, you've got a definite incentive to save money. I mean, it's there. Okay. And I did not specifically mention it, but I pointed out a little bit. The projected ROI on your investment for these analysis ranged from a low of 12-1 to 64-1. You know, even for the smallest one, if you were to get, if you receive $12,000 back for every $1,000 you spend, does it make it interesting, at least? Worth looking into? I don't know. And oh, by the way, the last two complete studies that I was involved with, we actually exceeded the high end of the range. Those ranges are based upon doing 45,000 studies, so we've seen so many properties like those. But to finish a complete study is going to require a full inspection of the property. We do a full site photo survey. We take a picture of, well, not only every room, but every asset in the building. Okay, and I do them if they're local. I'm doing them. I'll get up on the roof. I take pictures of the AC. For a small building, I had a 2,500 square foot split dual office retail, and I think I took, I don't know, about 57 photos. Didn't seem like an awful lot. Something like that shopping center, probably about 300 photos, and they're high definition, so our engineers can see every little thing in that building. one of the of that dual split office, one of them had push handicap access doors. Those are expensive. Why not depreciate them at their expense ratio? So that's the little things we look at. When we have specialized buildings, dental offices are incredible for getting depreciation on because they have lead shielding in their walls between exam rooms. Very, very expensive. Very nice to depreciate. And those get to be accelerated. Yes?
So I was wondering if my tenants do
Pardon?
if my tenants do things to improve the space that they rent for me, like they added a really fancy hydraulic lift gate for the truck, they've added some racking that is permanent, they've added some other things to my warehouse. If I'm understanding this, we can take our original cost seg from the year we purchased it, and then we can add these things to it.
If they're, okay, were they done the same year or much year after? The reason I bring that up, the IRS looks at things when you, say you got a building or do it and then you improve it in that same year, that same tax year, that's a betterment. Okay? It's a betterment property, it's the way it goes, and you can capitalize that, but they look at that as a betterment. Because I want to differentiate that when we get into PAD, which is going to be really happy for you. So all of those items, yes, you might be able to do an additional, if it's worth it, okay. I mean, doing an additional study, because every study is based upon the sales price, not value.
Right.
Okay, so you may have bought a building back in 2017 that's appreciated 30%. No, sorry, the cost seg study works on what you bought it for, not what the value is. So that's the only thing that you can prove to the IRS is what you purchased for. So yes, and you've got my card and you've got some specifics. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Okay? Okay. So just like every building can be somewhat unique, the building's owner's tax structure can also vary widely. So typically owners of commercial buildings, boy, I just lost my place. Okay, before I do that, has anyone here ever heard of the grouping selection? CPA? Aha, cool. Okay, so typically owners of buildings rent or lease them out. Okay, the income they derive, unless that owner meets the standards of being a real estate professional, is classified as passive income. Okay? The benefits of deductions, appreciation, only applies towards passive income. But if the owner operates their business out of that building and they select grouping as an accounting alternate, then all depreciation deductions to net operating income can be applied to both passive and all active income. I want to bring those two topics back up for the restaurant and the office condo. So if those were purchased, and obviously most restaurants, people buy and put their own restaurant in there. So they're going to be operating their business out of that building. So all depreciation from a cost seg or whatever process is can apply to both passive and active income. Big giant caveat. The grouping selection must be taken in the first tax year of ownership. Use it or lose it. You can't decide 3 years later and say, boy, I'd sure like to do that grouping thing. IRS is not going to let you. Okay. But for a new purchase of that condo, office condo, or the restaurant, whoever's going in there, boom, they do a cost seg study, and at the same time they sit there and do grouping. So all of the benefits of that interest write-off is going to work towards both their passive income and their active income.
So they're buying it and occupying it.
If they're operating their business out of their building. Okay?
Is it either or for grouping and real estate professional status?
Pardon?
Sorry, is it either or for grouping and real estate professional status?
Well, real estate professional status, you can just about do anything you want because you classify the hours. You are a professional. So everything you make is active income. Okay? So it's all there. So yeah, you get to work towards that. Okay. Now you might wonder if there's ever a case when cost seg won't work. In our experience, there's only about 3 different scenarios that may not work, But like most examples, there's always an exception. First, if the owner has no income, they have no taxes to pay, you can't reduce below zero, not going to do you any good. Now there's a kind of a side exception to that. No current income in current year, but expect to change. We still do not recommend for the current year, as the study is not time sensitive to the tax year, back to that date of service. So we recommend people, if they're thinking about that, no, you don't have any income yet. Wait until the income is realized, then complete the study, looking back to the date of service, because it will apply forward. Give a simple example. Client purchases 3 fourplex properties with already fixed rents. Utilizing all the basic write-offs, the mortgage, the taxes, etc., there's no current net income. The owner's forecast a substantial increase in about 36 months. If income then warrants it, complete the study then. Don't do it now. Okay. Number 2, the building was purchased as part of a 1031 exchange. The net building value basis after the exchange may be too low to warrant a study. Typically, a net building value of $200,000 to $250,000 is needed to show a benefit. Below that, you're just trading dollars. The third is the owner's going to flip the building within a short ownership period. Like any other depreciation, the accelerated benefit is subject to recapture when you sell. The IRS is coming back for it. So we typically recommend a holding period of 5 years, although we've had several instances where a 3-year period worked. Below that, if you're going to flip it before that, no, don't bother. Now the exception, there's always an exception. We have a client who purchases multiple buildings per year. He purchased a building group with a cost seg benefit of $1.3 million with the intent of selling in 24 months. He told us he didn't care about the recapture, as he had basically an interest-free use of that money. And with his multiple building purchase program, it was still highly advantageous because he's just rolling it over. So, exception to the rule. Okay. One of the most common things I hear from building owners whose tax professionals are not familiar with cost seg, my CPA takes care of all that. And I'm not going to pick on you, but in fact, I hope really enlarge your practice in billings related to cost seg, because, well, let me go over here. I have an associate in CCSI and she's great. She likens the difference in medical terms between what we do compared to what your CPA does. In the world of depreciation, your CPA is a highly qualified general practitioner. A GP keeps you healthy. They give you physicals and treat most common symptoms. Your CPA keeps you compliant with the IRS and makes sure that you are up to date with changing tax laws. Critical. But say when you have a heart issue, your GPA doesn't treat you. But say refer you to a specialist, and that's what we are. We are specialists in depreciation, providing the highly technical information to your CPA to save you money. CPAs are very, very good at what they do, but they rarely have the resources to complete an engineer-based building study that can pass the sniff test of the IRS. And that is why over 60% of the studies we complete annually are direct referrals from CPAs. We provide them with all the critical data they need to enhance your return. Their responsibility is to keep you compliant. Our responsibility is to help them save your money. So for the CPAs here, trust me, cost seg will enhance your standings with your clients and increase your net billings. One thing I haven't mentioned, and for many it is a game changer. With over 45,000 studies completed, we have saved our clients billions of dollars in tax savings, and not once have we ever triggered an audit. In fact, right in our engagement letter, we warrant that if our client is ever audited and our study is called into question, we guarantee to participate in that audit, defending our study. We do this no charge for as long as the owner owns the building. Not many people ever do that. In over 45,000 studies, we have participated in an audit, not triggered by our study, less than 12 times. In fact, prior to completing their revision of their audit manual pertaining to cost seg, the IRS actually embedded a senior auditor at our company for 6 months. That auditor was the chief architect for that portion of the audit manual. The standards we maintain are second to none. Okay, finally, and I direct this topic more towards the CPA here, or for your interaction with them. If you complete a cost seg study on your property, is there any specialized or different accounting that needs to be done? If this is a new purchase and the accelerated method is your first depreciation process on that building, no. That cost seg and results of that study become your baseline depreciation schedule. Now, let's assume you are going to do a cost seg study on a building that you bought in 2022. Depreciation schedule's already been set. You're already depreciating those properties. We're going to go back. The IRS requires you to submit a change of accounting method known as in the industry as a Form 3115. Most CPAs rarely do them, and they don't like them when they do have to do them. They range anywhere between 3 to 25 pages. Well, we do hundreds of them per year. We will provide your CPA with a draft copy of the 3115, which they only have to review and sign, and you are compliant. Believe me, 315s are not fun. But like I said, we do so many of them, there's no issues. Okay. I want to go a little different. Enough on cost seg. I'd like to touch quickly on a couple programs that very few people are familiar with and can enhance a cost seg study or stand alone. First is PAD, which stands for Partial Asset Disposition. Often building owners decide to reconfigure or renovate their buildings. Now, if that happens in the same year as the purchase, the IRS looks at that as betterment to the property and it must be fully capitalized, but then think cost seg. But if it happens in a later year, PAD is there to help them. Say a client buys a building in 2023 and puts it into service that year. Whether they completed a cost seg study or not, yeah, obviously better if they did, but not really, who cares? But they decide to renovate it in 2024. With the building going into service in 2023, all of the components of the building are now set in value on their depreciation schedule. But now in 2024, the renovation requires demolition of part or all of that interior. What PAD allows you to do is depreciate 100% of the remaining life's value of those items you're tearing out and throwing away. So if you are on straight line, you might have 20 years of life left in those products. Even on a cost seg, you might have 3 to 7 or 10 or items left on those particular items. And, this is even better, PAD allows you to expense the cost of the removal and disposal of those items.
So, does it matter when the renovation starts? Is it just when it's done? And what is considered?
It has to be past the first tax year of your purchase, okay, because otherwise it's a straight betterment of the property and has to be capitalized. Okay. But again, I give the example of purchase it in 23, now you're in the 24 tax year, you're doing it, boom, you can do all the PAD.
So if we started the reno in November, but we weren't done until May, that would be next.
Again, separate tax years. Yep. Okay.
I mean, I've done a simplified PAD thing for years. It's basically only been on roof replacement.
Okay.
And what I've done, and what I learned this from a tax partner 20 years ago, is that if you have to go backwards, because of course the original building was purchased and it was all, the 39-year property or the 27 and a half if it was residential. Well, you have one cost for the building, but there's no breakout retroactively of how much the roof cost.
That's why cost seg study is nice, because it does.
But so what he did and what I've done since maybe a dozen times is, okay, here's how much the new roof costs. Here's what the building is worth now. What's that ratio? Go back to the original building cost. Okay, so this is what that roof would have cost. Create 2 assets on the tax return. Sell the old roof for nothing, which means you get to take a loss.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. You're expensing it. You're expensing it out.
Yeah. Essentially.
Yeah. But
I've never done it for any other component. I've only done that
for roofs.
Roof replacement.
And PAD also allows you again to not just expense the materials, but write off as an expense the cost of removal and disposal. So if it costs you, I'll give you an example. Okay. Oh, and by the way, then a cost seg study after the completion of that renovation, everything that's going back into that building is now qualified improvement property, QIP, which is now 15-year property. It can be accelerated with bonus. Okay, so perspective. A $2 million interior renovation removes property that says has $350,000 of remaining life. Cost to remove and dispose of that property is $125,000. $425,000 now becomes an additional deductible expense. That alone, and I hit 37% tax bracket again, but it's worth over $144,000 to the client they never even knew about. And that's above and beyond the cost seg on all the other parts of that renovation. Large caveat, here we go again. PAD can only be used in the tax year of the renovation. So if I'll even throw some different numbers. You bought a building in 2022. You're renovating in 24. All the PAD's got to be in your tax year for 2024 when the renovation was completed. Now, if you didn't finish it till 25, then it goes in the 25. So whenever your renovation is completed, that's the tax year that PAD must be applied to.
What defines the renovation being complete? Is it just a statement from the?
Typically an occupancy certificate.
Okay, well, what if we never needed to get?
You never lost your occupancy, you were still operating it. You're going to have to get something notarized, get a date that this process was completed on such and such date.
Oh, okay.
The IRS they do have sniff tests, okay? But if you have documentation and you say, okay, fine, we started this renovation on March of such and such year and we finished it in August of such and such year, okay, so for PAD, you're going to have to put it in that tax year, okay? And if you don't, the other one before, you lose it, you have to use it or lose it. You can't go back again. Okay, the second topic I'd like to talk about is 179D energy deduction. Whether new construction or renovation, the IRS has established a program to provide specialized depreciation for components that enhance energy efficiency. I had to read that one. Improvements to lighting, HVAC, plumbing, and building envelope. That's your roof, insulation, windows, whatnot. Okay. May qualify for from $1 to $5 per square foot of the building benefit. This is limited, however, to the maximum of the cost of those improvements. Quick example. You got a 100,000 square foot building and it qualifies for $125,000 worth of 179D energy deduction, but you only spent $75,000 on doing it, you only get to write off the 75. You don't get the full 1.25 per square foot for that, up to the maximum amount. This is a really and highly technical process. It requires not only an engineering study, but an on-site inspection by a qualified engineer to verify components meet the efficiency tests. To qualify for the program, now I just put the buildings constructed on or after 2006, must meet a 50% gain in efficiency over the standards of 2005. Now, trust me when I say any building constructed or modified after the year 2017, I could probably go back to 2012, has little of any problems qualifying. We're talking about energy efficiency standards in 2005 were, okay, anything you purchased, LED lighting, all that stuff is way beyond 2005. However, because of the higher cost of the study, the base square footage to provide a positive return is typically about 40,000 square feet. Okay. Anything smaller than that, some of them worked, but most of them don't. The ROI on a smaller property, like a 40,000 square foot building, is also much lower, probably about 8 to 10 to 1. But I like to look at 179D as kind of like being the icing on the cost seg and PAD cake. Not as great, but if you're spending $5,000, you're getting another $50,000. Okay. One bad thing about 179D. Unlike cost seg, this study must be applied to the date of service or renovation year, so if you're doing it years, you may have to amend returns. That can put a damper on for some people. Some people doesn't bother them a bit. Okay. You all got a little packet. I hope if you haven't already, just to peruse, I put some information about cost seg and PAD and 179D. As I tell all my clients, I personally do not have all the answers. But I have a team that does. They're incredible. It's my hope to become your depreciation consultant. Not every problem or situation warrants a cost seg study, and I'll be the first to tell you when it won't. If you ever have any question regarding a building, just like we brought up today, with a building I'm not working with, I don't care if I'm working with you on it or not. If you've got a question, I'll get your answer for you. If it has to deal with depreciation of any type, we've got an incredible staff back in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and they are just, anyway, I'm going to give you an example. I had a potential client just recently asked me, he had purchased a property that required a $1 million plus EPA cleanup. He asked me, was there anything we can do? And totally new question for me. I had no clue. So I went back to staff and I got a really quick reply, and they came back with 2 questions and their related scenarios. First, was the cleanup a surprise or a known situation? If it was a surprise and was not considered in the purchase when most likely the EPA error can be expensed, so if it was a surprise and was not considered in the purchase, then most likely the EPA repair can be expensed. Remember, expensing is always better than capitalizing. If, however, the EPA cleanup was a known and probably resulted in a reduced purchase price, the cleanup cost would be considered a betterment to the property, extending its life, and would therefore need to be capitalized. If it's an expense, your CPA can perfectly take care of it. If it is to be capitalized, incorporating it with a cost seg study will provide him the ability to treat the cleanup as an overhead type cost and allocated to all components on a pro rata basis. In other words, accelerated depreciation. He and his CPA now have a clear path. Don't know if he's going to use me or not, but he needed the question answered, and I was happy to do that. Okay, now if I haven't covered most of it, I'm going to open up for just broad questions. And anybody got anything we haven't covered already? Yes, ma'am. And I'm going to get closer because I'm getting old. My hearing's not very good. No, it's okay.
So we didn't talk about new construction. If someone's constructing a new building, when's the right time to do a cost segregation study if it's on gray shell?
Okay.
So we don't have a lot of, built-in stuff except for an elevator, the basic stuff.
Okay, perfect question. She asked, what about new construction? When do you do it?
So December 2024.
Okay.
We have a real estate designation status. We qualify for that. And it's, currently being marketed for rents.
When are you going to be granted occupancy?
We don't know yet.
That's the date in service. You do not want to do a cost seg study until you have the property placed in service.
Okay.
We can give you an estimate.
That's another thing. Does income have to be from the property?
Pardon?
Does the income have to be from the property? What if there's income from other resources?
When you're doing a study, you're doing a study on a specific property.
Okay.
Okay, so it's related to that income. Now, if you have, talk to your CPA, but if you have a grouping of buildings that maybe have the same common process, then that might be something different. But
What about your job income? Will it apply to your job income if you do have income from other sources?
Okay, if that building, if you're using that building for your business, then you can, and if you group, and you must group that first year after the first tax year of that building, then you can go against the passive income, which is the money you're making off that building, and also against your active income. So if you've got a building and maybe you're using it for a sports center, okay, whatever, and your sports center is making $250,000 a year, and the building you're only charging yourself rent of $2,000 a month, so only $24,000 a year. So the cost seg typically would only apply to the $24,000, but because you are actively doing that, it applies to the other income also. But again, the cost seg study is going to be done. It won't be effective until you have occupancy, until you have a date of service.
Did you bring up multiple buildings though? Is that what you putting up? Like, if you have a building, we do multiple phases. Is there a way to best
Yeah.
use that?
And let's assume you got the first phase in. You can do a cost seg study on that. And second phase in, yes, we do an updated, not a full, complete, don't have to start from square one, but we do an updated study, which is lower cost. Okay, and 3, 4, 5, depending on how you do it.
For example, the
for that tax year. It can only be done for that. So if you're doing okay, we're really going far afield, but that's okay. So let's pick this building right here. Okay, so this half of the building has been renovated. We've got new LED lighting in it. It's got a new, had to put a new roof on, new HVAC, all that sort of stuff. That building part of it didn't. You're going to do a 179 study on this portion of what you've done. It's going to be reflective, again, up to maximum that you put in. Okay? Yes. I love this part. This is the best part. This is my fun part for today.
I'm very curious about the 179D. Would that pertain to updating windows? So if you have
Yes,
a building with older windows?
yes, part of your envelope. Part of your envelope. So roof, windows, siding can be, but definitely insulation. That's part of your envelope. So the 4 factors are your envelope, HVAC, lighting, plumbing.
All right. If I go from, say, having old lighting and I update that, and have an electrician come over and update it, then you would do the study afterwards to prove that there was a massive energy savings, or would we do that before and then just get quotes?
The study is actually going to prove both, but we're going to want to have some documentation of what was there and what went up.
Oh, okay.
But what was there is not near as important. What you're going to have is you're going to have receipts of what you put in. We're going to be able to examine those items on an engineering basis and said, okay, fine, their energy efficiency is such and such. And so they exceeded well above the 2005 standard. Therefore, they're eligible for a 179D. Up to the amount you put in, but there's different levels of, it basically starts about $1. Most of them are $1 to $1.80 a square foot. There's cases where it can go up to $5 a square foot, but we've only seen a few that ever meet that because you have to show that you hired contractors at a certain going rate. They have to have a minimum of so much percentage of journeyman apprentices relationship to be able to get up there. So they've made it really, really difficult to get up to that $5 a square foot now. But it's still at $1 or $1.25 a square foot. The standard's about $1 to $1.80. But again, 40,000 square feet or bigger, because otherwise it's really difficult to maintain it. Okay. Almost up to you. Okay, so I'm going to close here real soon, but I hope you gained some perspective and hopefully some curiosity regarding cost segregation. Now, should you develop additional questions, or if you have a specific property or specific properties that you'd like some information about, I hope you won't hesitate to call. Okay. Now, CCSI is not the only provider of cost seg. All of at least the big 4 national accounting firms have cost seg divisions. If you are a client of a Deloitte or any of the big 4, if you've got a building, you're going to have a cost seg study done whether you want it or not. It's part of their process. You don't have a choice. But we are the largest independent firm. And I'll tell you right now, we are not the cheapest, but we are extremely competitive and the best. And honestly, would you hire the lowest cost CPA in town to do your taxes? Just saying. Okay. If you looked at the back of my card, I don't know if you did, you'll see 2 other processes listed in which tax savings can be acquired. We're not going to go through them today, but if you or your clients are in a business that has a high proportion of R&D salaries, that's research and development salaries, not talking about the building, research and development salaries, you may qualify for R&D tax credits. If you have a large, typically 10 million plus construction project in its planning or very early stages, it may be worth your while to give me a call about the funny sounding green zip tape. Its use can often save between 5 to 10% of the entire project's cost just by changing over to a funny little zip tape. Would you like me to get that for 15 seconds? Okay. Sheetrock. Putting up sheetrock. Standard process is you put 2 pieces of sheetrock up, you run a piece of mud down, then you run some tape down, and then you put another mud on top of the tape, you sand it all out, and away you go. Well, this green zip tape is kind of funny. It's self-adhesive, so it speeds up the sheetrock process by you put your sheetrock up, you just put the green zip tape up, and mud it and sand it, done. No big deal. Here's the biggie. It is the only product approved by the Internal Revenue Service in the country that is now classified as, if it is a non-bearing wall, it becomes a movable wall. A movable wall only has a 5-year life for depreciation, not 37. Not only that, you can remove it just like that, pop it off your sheetrock. Doesn't have to go in the dumpster. You can qualify for up to 27 LEEDs credits. Nice if you're building a hotel where things want LEED credits. You have no disposal of it. Everything on that wall, everything in the wall, electrical, plumbing, whatever's in that wall, is now also 5-year. Yeah.
What about the studs too?
Everything in or on that wall. Yep. Studs. That's why metal studs are really cool.
So you're saying electrical,
Everything in or on that non-bearing wall. It doesn't reflect the bearing wall. That's a bearing. That's not a bearing wall. Non-bearing wall. Okay. It's really cool. Again, it has to be a large project. 10 million is our base number. But for hotels, large apartment complexes, large industrial buildings, when you're doing a lot of sheetrock, oh my God, it's the funniest stuff. But we have a hotel we just did it for down in Nevada. Their savings was $7.5 million.
I wonder who the lobbyist was that got that carved out.
I don't. It's kind of funny. We're not the only person that represents that product. The inventor of it, he's back in Atlanta, and it's been like a small mom and pop operation almost, but he patented the process. And we've got so many recommendations from huge construction national firms that we're kind of new to it. We've only had it for about a year, but it's the input from some of the large developers has just been crazy. He says, "You got to be kidding me," because you can just pop off the sheetrock. You can reuse it. You know, let's say you're doing. Oh, we have one that's doing. The hospital's doing a renovation. They don't really like to shut down the hospital. There's no dust, there's no mess when you're popping off the sheetrock because you're not destroying the rock. All you're doing is zip, oops. And you don't even have to take the screws off on the interior, they just pop off and you might have to plug a hole. But anyway, if you're interested in finding out about it, give me a call. And I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank Derek and your staff for having me here. The best thing I can do is get the information out and let you guys go from there. If you've got questions, whatever you do, if you've got properties that you own or people you know that have buildings, more likely than not, a cost seg study is going to do you wonders. And if it doesn't, I'll tell you that right up front.